from Mondays to Fridays as from 6 p.m. GMT on
They speak with water in their mouth. Mr. Leo.
Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to another edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We're glad to have you before your screens. We are sorry for the slight late start for today's edition of the program. We are going to be looking at the question as to why many graduates in Cameroon are jobless. What is happening? Is it the fact that they are not well equipped with skills and knowledge on what to do after graduation, or the fact that the economy does not permit for industrialization to take place as so that they can provide more jobs for our graduates in our respective from our respective universities? We also are going to be looking at our educational system, asking what needs to be fixed to get our educational system fully functional and adapted to the requirements of today's the 21st century. We expect to get graduates who can adapt to the global economy. What do we need to fix in our educational system to be able to produce what is expected from the economy in Cote d'Ivoire, in Gabon, in Congo, in America, and in the United States of America? We are going to be discussing these two topics with our panelists who are seated already. Our consultant is there. Apostle Ambe Valentine Ngwa is here with us. We're glad to have you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, my co-panelists. Good evening, Cameroonians, and welcome to Prime Hour. It's always a joy to be here. God will help us communicate the reasons why our graduates are jobless. It's a very important and pertinent issue in this country, and I'm very sure after this program we're going to get a headway.
Okay, Martha, watching us from around Sosoliso in Boya, I hope you have taken your pens and your pen and paper to jot down what we are going to be discussing this evening. We also in the company of George. They call him George Mr. Mofo. He is a social entrepreneur and an educationist par excellence. Good evening and welcome.
Thanks, good evening to the viewers. Good evening to the co-panelists. It's a pleasure for me to be here. I wish to say it's a passionate topic, and in my other life I'm referred to as a career coach, so I couldn't have actually avoided this particular program not to be present, because if you are not solving a problem, you are part of the problem. So I want to be part of the people who are solving the problem.
So you who is watching the program, I think you should ask yourself whether you are not part of the problem, or are you solving the problem? What problems are you solving in your community, in your family, and in your region? We also in the company of Ndiwum Emmanuel. He is a very active member of the civil society, but a teacher also. Good evening and welcome.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Leo, and thanks for the invitation. I want to take this evening to send a special greeting to my three lovely kids who are getting set to go back to school, Ndiwum Kelin, Ndiwum Kela, and Ndiwum Kerem, and all to the academic family, especially parents whom at this point in time are leaving no stone unturned to make sure that their kids get back to school. A
very deplorable situation. We had a program last night with Mr. Sama, who told us that not more than 60 persons took part in the GC examinations in Momo division, and to imagine that in other divisions things may be worse. Apostle Ambe Valentine, the picture painted yesterday was
very heart-wrenching. Very heart-wrenching to even talk of the fact that in a very big division like Momo division, we had 37 candidates for GC ordinary level and advanced level. It's mind-blowing, something that has never been heard of in the history of the Cameroon General Certificate Education. It's never been heard, and yesterday's statistics were very frightening, and to let us understand the gravity to which this war has rendered the north and southwest very, very frustrated.
Okay. We also had the company of Ndifo Richard, who is going to be participating via Skype from the United States of America. Good evening, Ndifo, and welcome. Similarly, okay, Ndifo, good evening and welcome. Ndifo is there, I can see him, he's not responding. But also it's Mr. Ghana Maina, who is going to be participating from Kampala in Uganda. Is he ready? Good evening and welcome, Ghana Maina. Okay, both are not, but I saw Ndifo. Okay, I'll start with you, Apostle Lambi Valentine. Can we understand why every year we churn out thousands of graduates from the University of Yaoundé 1, University of Yaoundé 2, Ngaoundéré, Maroua, Boya, Douala, Bamenda? Not easy to get a job, eh? Why are most of us jobless?
Yes, Mr. Leo, this is a very important topic. I'm sure many persons are waiting for us to come here and heap blames on the government. They have their own share of the bargain, but we have to begin by saying that if our graduates in Cameroon do not have a job, it's because they study what they are passionate about, not what is needed.
Okay.
If we study what we are passionate about, we don't study what is in need in the market. We don't study what the job market is in need of. We study what we are passionate about. Somebody goes to university and studies what does not have a particular market in the society. He comes tomorrow thinking that he will write a concours, because we are trained to write concours, we are trained to write entrances, we are trained to write exams, and then when we find ourselves under a ministry, even if we are not qualified, the concours gives us entrance into the ministry. Somebody goes to EMEA with sociology to study what? Criminality, banditism, or what? Somebody goes to ENAM with psychology to go and study what? Because you are employed into the institutions based on who you are connected to and not based on competence. Now, the few persons that the government is able to accommodate based on connections, a huge number of the persons who left the university being trained with their passion, not what is needed in the market, they get frustrated in the society. So because of what people study is the reason why sometimes it's difficult. You go to a country like India, if you do something like literature history, you are considered a minor in the society. India is predominantly a technological society where almost about 80% of them are considered to be scientists. But in our society today, we look, a majority of our students in the university, if you go for A-level result, you will see art students who are successful in the exams are more than those who are even daring to study science. That is to let you understand that we study what is easy, we don't study what is needed. People don't have the patience to sit down to crack their head with chemical composition that will produce things tomorrow. They just want to read some history, some literature, to articulate grammar and to dispense facts. And because of that, they feel honored. And the error also is that we have a very bad colonial background. We think intelligence is because you can articulate and present grammar effectively. Good English is not a sign of intelligence. It's an error. I have known many persons, the proverbs in Africa were never spoken in English. They were only translated from the original tongue. An Ethiopian proverb said, I repeat, I quote, it says, a woman that is in need of a child does not sleep with pants. That the original connotation of that proverb did not come in English. English only translated it. Then if somebody says it today with a wrong English, it will look like the person is not intelligent. The intelligence was in the proverb, it was not in the translation. And this is the reason why we are suffering, because our children just go to study what is so easy. We don't have the patience to go down and crack down and dig things and come out with result. In Europe and America, studies more is based on research. It's not based on the certificate you have. We rely on papers.
You go to school because there is a need for what you're studying.
Yes, there is a need. You look at the present day market, the job market. There is a need in the IT. We are in the IT generation. It is very normal that if you read English language, journalism, psychology, you need to attach something IT in this dispensation, because education itself is evolving. It was a UNESCO boss that said education is evolving. You cannot maintain the status quo and be what you used to be 10 years ago to today, because the job market is changing. So most of the times we don't study what is needed, we study what we are passionate about. And we may be passionate about something that is not needed.
Mr. George, Mr. Mufo, I don't know, is Mr. Ghana available? And for available, please. If they are there, just indicate. But Mr. George, okay, Ndifo, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Leonard, and thanks for having me.
Yes, how are you doing out there? Mr. Ndifo is not Shanghai, China. Mr. Ndifo is in the United States of America. I see there via Skype, Shanghai, China is not available. But let me have him. Mr. Ndifo, are you really also disturbed by what is happening in Cameroon and other African nations that we graduate and the jobs are not there?
Yeah, Leonard. It's a problem, like you said, across Africa. And problem developing on two basic questions. If we have to answer these two basic questions, I think we'll start looking for solution. The first question is identifying skills. What kind of skills do employers value most? And the second question is our schools and educational system preparing the children in a way that they can have these skills. Unfortunately, like you said, that is not the case because there is a huge gap between what the students learn in school and what the employers need. Normally, a lot of people will argue that the kind of education that students impose is vocational education, is technical education. But recent research has shown that it is not more about the setting, the educational setting, where the students are learning, but it's rather more about the curriculum and the pedagogy. It's more about what is being taught and how it is being taught. And in that case, we realize that most employers today, while they need technical skills, while technical skills are necessary, what most employers need today are what they call employability skills. And what are these employability skills? It is otherwise known as soft skills. These are the kind of skills that most employers are looking for in applicants, in young graduates who are applying to work. They are looking for these employability skills, and when we talk of employability skills, a few examples would be things like critical thinking skills, teamwork, problem-solving skills, decision-making, leadership, and all of that. So these are the soft skills that are needed. Even if the students have the technical skills, they still need these soft skills to complement those technical skills. So the question now is our schools really preparing the children to be able to acquire these skills? What obtains in our school is that the method of teaching and the curriculum itself is how do I put it? It is compressed with a lot of theory, a lot of materials that is not really needed in the job market. For example, when students graduate, they will not be required to list the terms of the Versailles Treaty. They will not be required to state thermodynamics. They will not be required to be describing the character of people or whatever. What the students will be expecting from the students or the graduates, what will be the job market will expect from them, will be these soft skills, these skills of critical thinking and all of that. And if our schools are structured and made in a way that students right from primary school start developing, start building these skills, and by the time they they graduate from the university, these skills would have been part and parcel of them, and they will be easily find the kind of jobs that they will want to have. And just to conclude, to say that, Leonard, there is one thing to be employed and another thing to be employable. To be employed simply means that you could find a job, and that job may not be permanent. It may not be a permanent job, so to speak, because you could easily lose the job because you are not employable. And to be employable means you have all these skills, the technical and employability skills that will permit you to be able to maintain a job and progress in that job.
Premises that we actually situate the problem of unemployment in the world, and Cameroon specifically. Now, the whole issue is not actually that there are actually no jobs. The first thing that actually happens is that the mindset of the people who are going to school probably was not initially intended that they would definitely think otherwise, rather than getting somebody who will ask them to present a curriculum vitae. But I think what we should be able to say here now is that some of the things that we are saying here and addressing ourselves to the question, why are most Cameroonian graduates jobless? It looks like the fact that they are jobless is because they are graduates. But the question is, what is the content of what qualifies them to be called a graduate? And that's where now I am very much interested to address myself, because when you look at the process of schooling, you discover that the majority of the times they spend, especially with the fact that the lecturers who are also probably molded to only think that anything out of the textbook or the degree and the rest that they have read is out of place, and so they are not in the role to in the position to actually coach the students who are learning that they could also think out of the box. And when you see a situation where even during a school period, you hardly have students who participate in extracurricular activities. Yeah, I'm referring to, there are some persons who will focus only on having good CAs and forget that a simple club activity or even a simple excursion could also be a good reason for them to acquire some of the skills that a classroom will not give to them. I want to say, even if you look at the current trends today, people who are employers, they will hardly start addressing themselves to your academic qualifications. They will be interested in your experience. And what are we saying here? The experience that we are talking about, they are the things that you did out of the classroom. Did you occupy a particular position as a class delegate? Did you, in the course of your going to school, do something during the holidays like we are now? And so I want to say, and I want people who will be sending you SMS to challenge what I am saying, because I've lived the experience. I'm coming from somewhere where you have more what you might call educated unemployed, who are actually thinking that the world owes them something. But I want to say also, paradoxically, the SM environment has sufficient problems that these same graduates could address themselves and become very much relevant.
Everybody almost wants to have an office, but we have people themselves who are graduates who are scared to take up certain functions because they know very well that they are not equipped with what is required to do the job.
That's what I'm saying.
There are many people in homes here, you may think that there are no jobs, but they know very well that they cannot deliver.
That's why I say the certificates that they have. You know, when they talk about public speaking, you teach people, you teach public speaking. These are things that you cultivate out of, first of all, you have a passion for attending conferences. You identify mentors around you who speak, and you try to, I mean, you just need a mirror in front of your house, and then you read out from a very good paper, and you acquire those skills. And you have a repeated, because I'm saying that most of these skills are not what the school does. Leo, and again, one of the things I've also recognized about, especially when we are talking, most time we are blaming the school system, we forget a very, very important element of the whole world that we live in, the family system. The family system, when you see a child growing up, what is it cultivated in their mind? You hear even the conversation of their parents. What do they say? This is my friend's son, he's a graduate in this, he's a lawyer,
we are going to come to that.
And then you discover that simple, basic thing which begins from how to earn monies.
They are talking children out of their gifts.
Because all what we are saying here is how to make money and make good life. How many times do parents actually tell the children they bring up that, can you present to me a budget of how you want to spend this money I'm going to give to you, or just give me a report on how you spend the last pocket allowance I gave to you? And you will be so embarrassed by what is happening. You know, I am presently embarrassed with there is a program we have called management trainee for graduates, and we're asking people who have just validated their GPS or whatever to come so that they are actually transit from school to the world of work. But you know, a lot of people have actually absconded from that opportunity because they cannot even present a CV.
Yeah, that is the world we live in. But they can tell you all the snacks that attend every Saturday.
Of course, but that's the
they'll tell you all the
offers around.
They call it what? Telenovelas. They'll tell you who was killed yesterday, who cheated on who yesterday, and that is the CV we are going to get. But Mr. Ndiwum Emmanuel, are we also not suffering from the mentality of almost every graduate thinking that they have to work in an office? We think that because we have gone to the university, there should be an office ready for us, and we wait 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years waiting for the day that we are going to be called to occupy an office.
Well, Mr. Leo, that's nobody can dispute the fact that that question is in its place. Because one of the highest problems, especially in Cameroon today, is the civil service mentality. That people want to wear very nice suits, go around with nice cars, and they don't want to know how much time it can take them. But then, let me talk from my perspective as a teacher.
Okay.
You see this topic is very sensitive, and I think it will do some good for many people this evening. You see, African educational system as a whole has a problem.
Okay.
But let me limit myself to Cameroon. You know, what we have in most African countries, and Cameroon in particular, is we have certified graduates, not qualified graduates. And that is and that is exactly where the problem is coming from. And we have education for a necessity, not education for a purpose.
To meet specific needs.
And when you go to it pedagogically, they tell you, if they ask you why an educational system, let me put it in three factions. Each educational system has a purpose and objective to be attained. 1, to the learner. 2, to he who is teaching. 3, to the community at large. But then you discover that those who come in to learn are being taught by those who have been taught by theories and not practicals. And since you can only learn and understand what the teacher is teaching you, you cannot go above the teacher. Here comes a problem. I don't know when we go around it, the only people we can blame is the people we call the curriculum designers.
The policy makers.
Curriculum designers, that's how we call it in pedagogy.
Okay.
And these curriculum designers, in most cases in Africa, happen to be those who are not very much founded.
They are not educationists themselves.
Yes. In pedagogy, they are not educationists.
They are appointed persons.
They are appointed persons. Yeah. And you understand that somebody who is not very much founded in pedagogy or in education will not be able to shape the academic landscape, will not be able to shape the educational system of a country. I just give you a simple reason, a simple example. Remember that we once had somebody who did transport and logistics in this country, who was appointed as the Minister of Secondary Education, who had worked with Sokatu for so long a time, who had little or no bearing.
You mean the former Minister of
Yes, Ngale Bibihe, who had little or no bearing with education. So what do you think that in the table of educational policy he will have to offer? But then he has an upper hand because he's the minister in that domain. And what will you expect? Of course, wrong policies. And then you discover that those who are trained to do this job, decisions are taken without them being integrated into the decision-making tables. That it comes back to what Mr. George said here. We have forgotten that if our education was to be education for purpose, we would have considered skill, not certificates. And Cameroon happens to be one of the countries where certificates are paid more than productivity. Because I am not saying that PhDs or whatsoever, they are very important. But let's ask ourselves this question. PhD, first degree, of what impact is it to our community? Because our education was supposed to be tailored in a way that it trains problem identifiers. It trains problem solvers. Then it trains job creators and not job seekers. But that has not been the case because our education is not education for purpose. So that is why we discover that we have more certified graduates than qualified graduates. You see people with PhDs riding motorbikes in Douala. You see people with PhDs working under proprietors who have nothing to do with education. They are at the beck and call of these proprietors because our education has not been designed in a way that skill is the target. Because when skill is the target, you discover that your community benefits from you. You yourself, you become a job creator. You are the owner of your skill first before you sell it out to any other person. But when that is not the case, with your PhD, you become a beggar. With your PhD, you go working for somebody who has never been to school. I am not condemning the fact that these PhDs and other qualification papers are not needed. They are needed. But like you said, on the second part of the second topic of the program, we will be looking at how these certificates.
No, even this is the topic here.
Yes.
Apostle Ambe Valentine, the topic. We are going to come to the second topic, but Apostle Ambe Valentine, we have people who are PhD holders. We saw them marching in the streets of Yaoundé, crying and screaming that they needed jobs. How do you understand that you have a master's degree and you are confused? You don't know what to do. You have you have an undergraduate degree. You don't know what to do. You are crying because you are lost.
Mr. Ali, as much as we blame the students for studying what they are passionate about, know what is needed in the market, we have to get back to find out who gives them what to study.
Orientation.
Yes. Who gives them what to study? You know, their educational curriculum in our country is a colonial educational curriculum. How do you explain that we are Cameroonians and we are studying English? It tells you where the educational curriculum is coming from. and we are Cameroonians, we are studying French. French is not our language. English is not our language. It means they are borrowed curriculums sent to us. And it's shocking that the people who send us those curriculums don't study what we study. They gave us the chaff of education. They gave us the theory of education. They gave us, how do I put it, the oral aspect of education, not give us the practical aspect. These same persons have engineering programs that they carry that produce aeroplanes, they produce caterpillars, they produce vehicles, they produce all kinds of machines. Yet our educational curriculums it emanates from those people.
What we had in the 1960s is what operates to date.
Till date. I went to school and I studied about Songhai Empire, Mali Empire, Mansa Musa the Great, Sundiata. Years after my children are still studying Sundiata, Mansa Musa the Great, the Songhai Empire, the Mali Empire, is to tell you, I said one time that education in Cameroon is repetition of facts from one generation to another, while genuine schooling is a repetition of facts from one generation to another, while education is innovation of creativity. This is where we have a serious problem. If we have a curriculum created by us as Cameroonians, we will not study French as a language. Either we will study English as a language. It's a serious problem. China does not study French or English. They only had to study English and French because they needed to trade with it. Not like an official language. Their language is Mandarin. You go to other countries in the world, they use their language, but their language gives them the technology. How do you explain that British man gave us, and we boldly call it the Anglo-Saxon? Oh, Papa God. We call it Anglo-Saxon. The Anglo-Saxons, the Anglos that gave us this Saxon of education that we are studying, they have caterpillars. I don't know if the studies they gave us is not what they are studying. They produce plane, they produce car. If at all what was in Britain was transferred to us as education, then we are definitely supposed to duplicate and replicate exactly what is in Britain in terms of manpower, productivity, as well as technology. Yet we study from these people, and what they give to us, we come out with nothing. So we have the French subsystem of education, the French subsystem. It has been transferred from France. It came as a subsystem, which means we are supposed to reflect exactly how can France produce Renault. We study the same education, we cannot produce bicycle. How can France produce Peugeot? We study the same education, we cannot produce bicycle. How can France produce Citroën? And we have the French subsystem. There's French subsystem and the Anglo-Saxon. What we study, we cannot produce Jaguar. We cannot produce Range Rover. We cannot produce Lincoln Navigator. Yet we are studying the Anglo-Saxon and the French subsystem of education.
We are still studying the pre-read.
So there is a serious problem with what was handed down to us. I think we have to redefine what we need to study in our own context, and then educate our children. Because a child goes to school, they give you a list of courses. What you have there is law, medicine, sociology, anthropology, political science, law, environmental science, and psychology, physiology, history and literature, and then someone studies English language as a profession, modern letters, as opposed to the Edwardian, Elizabethan, Victorian era of language. You now study modern letters. To go and letter who? To go and letter who? I mean, something is wrong. Why are these guys who gave us this system of education so wicked that they gave us the chaff? And that's the reason why before they ever came to Africa, we had a technology. We have sculptors, we have goldsmiths, we have blacksmiths in Africa. The technology was not advanced, but it was at its infantry stage, which if it was allowed at that time would have grown. But instead they came and changed our perspective. We went into a theoretical system. We started having the clerks. It was a prestige for your father to work as a clerk in CDC. You were a field assistant to go and survey how they spray chemicals, not to even discuss what is wrong with the agricultural system. What tells that tells us that we have a serious problem. Then we started studying things like agriculture in the university. We start learning fertilizer in the university, but we are taught history about Crimean War. I mean, Crimean War, Mr. Liu. Crimean War. What has Crimean War helped a normal Cameroonian? You are studying about the Bolshevik and the Menshevik revolution.
The Napoleonic Wars.
Oh, Jesus Christ. What was handed down to us is trash. Complete trash. And that's the reason we are producing the kind of persons we have today in the society.
Mr. Maina Ghana seemingly is available. Good evening and welcome, Maina Ghana from Uganda.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we are talking about the fact that many of us have certificates. You are a Cameroonian, though you are living out there. Many of us have certificates, but we can't find a job in Cameroon. Can you understand what is not working?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you for having me today. For me, I understand very well. First of all, we need to understand exactly what kind of education we have, especially on the French African system. This education was designed because we were handed over our independence, and they need to train people who are going to work for the government as a civil servant. Mr. Leo, when you study, you see our education is just to train you to be a civil servant without any thinking, just to follow the rule, do exactly what the administration did, and that's it. And now, it takes us time, and our government went to sleep and did not discover that we have trained enough civil servants that we don't need the system of education now. We have taken over our country, we can govern by ourselves. We need to redesign this education to make sure that now we can create a job market. But we did not do that in many African countries. What happened today, especially in Cameroon, when you find out we have more than minimum, you can get 5 million graduated from the primary to secondary or at the university. We can find 5 million graduates, but they don't have job. Why? Because all their certificate is designed just for work for government. They are not useful anywhere. That's why me and any others have to go out to unlearn what we learn and to try to learn something new to become useful in the society. Besides that, you become just a pauper, like you are waiting to be given instruction to move on. Now, back to the question you are asking. Right now, it's going to be very tough for the younger generation to get a job because there is no position. How many people a government in Cameroon can employ every year? How many jobs Cameroonian government inside like civil servant, how many jobs the government of Cameroon can create yearly? Maximum, if they have tried, is 2,000. We go higher is 5,000. So we have almost 5 million on the line who don't have nothing to do. So it means that the education has become very obsolete, and we need to try to learn everything we teach those guys and to make sure that we train them now for the job market. Because this was 1960s system, Mr. Leo. So after 60s, 70s, and 80s mean that we have enough civil servants that we can change the system. But we wait almost extra 40 years without going nowhere, because from 1980 to now is almost 40 years without doing anything. And as we all know, as Africans, we have a problem. Our problem, we are firefighters. Firefighters are waiting only when there is a problem, we start looking for the solution. Firefighter has never saved anyhow. They just come and kill the fire, and that's it, and they leave. Everybody sympathizes with you. So we have the system of firefighting in our head that always we need to have problems in order to sit down. Meanwhile, Western developed countries, after when they train a lot of civil servants for their government, this education becomes so obsolete that only 5 or 10% can be trained. The remaining have to do now with the new job market, industrial market, entrepreneurship, leadership on the different areas. So this is the situation we are going through, Leo. It's up to us now to understand that we have enough people who are ready for the civil service. We need to completely change this question. Thank you.
Okay. Now, you get what Mr. Ghana is saying. But 40 years, he says that our system does not prepare persons who are adapted for what Cameroon actually needs in Africa. How do we understand that we have had subsequent ministers of basic, secondary, higher education? Is it that we see what they don't see, or what's happening, Mr. George?
We will blame the system and forget where the problem is, and I keep on saying that the issue is the individual. That is the best person who can change himself or herself. Now just look around you, look at a bit of introspection. Sometimes some 10 years ago the government called for 25,000 that advertised that they were ready to recruit 25,000 certificate holders. And at that time, how many persons applied? 375,000, which means from first school leavers to PhD. The last of those type of calls came when the government was to recruit 3,000 terminal degree holders. And I want to say, you'll be surprised that a university like that of Boya and Bamenda, they had some of those positions that they could not get a single person who speaks English who can apply for those specialized teaching positions in those universities. And they had now to go to, even though I want to say Apostle Ambe was talking about subsystems. Subsystems vis-a-vis the fact that there are two systems. So now it is not based on the fact that because it is French, so it's SOP is SU is under it's because in Cameroon the educational system is made up of two systems. So they say one is French subsystem, the other one is what they call Anglo-Saxon or English-speaking subsystem. But that's, for me, that's not the point. The point is that when we look around here, we might run into a trap of thinking that jobs here we are talking about being an employee. The best and most sustainable jobs are those which are generated by the persons who actually want to become their own bosses. I'm talking about self-employment. And that is what I want to say. If you look around, you move and look at some of the creative things that some of the guys who've gone to school they are doing. And let us also go out from this program this evening by letting persons know that certificate is wonderful, it is good. But what we are talking about is that the certificate is not a guarantee for you to have a job, because government gives you that certificate not because it's going to give you a job. It gives you that certificate to be able to be flexible, it's to be able to be adaptable to your environment, where you can be sensitive to the problems. We're talking about problem identification skills or problem solving skills. These are things that you can only do once you are out. Kum, I want to tell you that when this challenge that we have been having for the past 5 years happened, a lot of Cameroonians discovered themselves that they could do beyond what they had been trained to do in their small villages or their small towns. And how do you explain the fact that it is easier for somebody to pay taxi from one point A to point B in Douala for 500, but you go to Boya, they are still breaking taxis today and say I get 100 francs and all of those type of things? Because the mentality is, first of all, a mentality where people are thinking small. They are not thinking that they can go beyond. Leo, I'm saying that there are things which are sold in Douala here, and you go across to Boya of better quality, but you see people will definitely be begging. Somebody is like somebody buying from you is a favor that person is doing, because the issue is that we have been trained to see money as a limitation to a particular level, and we are inclined to say that this thing as money is the source of evil has been misinterpreted to mean that we cannot become rich persons. Look at it in this country. When they talk about billionaires or rich persons, you can barely count. I wonder whether we can, besides the other people who are above 70 or 75 years old today, you can hardly count with the one hand, the 5 fingers, count billionaires who are English speakers who are based in this country. And you discover that this issue that we are talking about here is not because of the educational system of Cameroon per se, because you discover that even people who have gone out of this country, they have acquired some of these certificates and they cannot adapt, because they keep on having what I call the protest mentality, We keep on thinking that somebody is owing us something and we have to liberate the whole the system by attacking people left and right. You find a scenario where we spend all our energy insulting ourselves, challenging, blaming other persons, so that this person has not done this. There are things that you see is factual like this, you say is a distraction. We spend our time. You look at an example. We are talking about AFCON that is coming. People are only seeing the entertainment side of it. Those 23 people who will be running behind that inflated balloon in the field. People are not talking about the opportunities that is going to be generated out of that period by planning now. Somebody has actually said what we call luck. Luck is where opportunities meet preparedness. And how prepared are we now to take the opportunity of what we are seemingly being distracted every day by other counting how much have been embezzled for AFCON? People are forgetting that the AFCON also beyond the 23,000 persons, 23 persons who are going to be running, that is the 22 players and the referee and the other persons. There are other opportunities that is going to be generated by that sport tournament and the rest. So we are saying that let us liberate our minds from start thinking about the options that our society generates, especially in difficulties, because again, that is where you see the limitless quantity of the human mind to go beyond. We have said here that if a human being can live 40 days without food, 15 days without water, 8 hours without oxygen, it means that 8 minutes without oxygen, it means that we can go beyond what we are thinking now, and let us explore and exploit the opportunities that this country generates by thinking beyond our certificate. Certificates are good, but how you become useful after that certificate by solving the problems around your vicinity, that's what makes your education very relevant.
As what makes their education very relevant. Now, we all seek jobs after graduation. We are not ready to help ourselves. Almost everybody think that when they graduate, they are supposed to have a job, a ready-made job for them. And those who are struggling, you see somebody who graduates and is struggling to open up a business, is struggling to start up an NGO, a foundation, to start up a company, you think that they are frustrated. And you sit there for years waiting for when the government or maybe CNN or these big companies will call you.
Mr. Leo, those people who graduate and they are going after jobs, they are not wrong. Okay. When we are saying things, let's not be biased, or let's not concentrate our knowledge and energy on one side. Yes. But before I come to that, Mr. Joyce said something a while ago that I really cannot take it, I cannot digest it down. When he says the problem should be first the individuals, I would have loved to find out from him how many individuals in this country have ever drawn up the educational curriculum of Cameroon. He is a product of a curriculum that was drawn by people he does not even know. If today he has come out to understand that there is something they can do beyond that, it should just be a contribution, not blaming individuals. You are a product of an educational system from a curriculum that was drawn up by the colonialists, inherited by your leaders, and they implemented it even wrongly. Coming back to your question, Mr. Leo, we need to understand that why do these people leave schools with their certificates and they think that everybody owes them a job? It comes now squarely to the environment in which they found themselves. One, if our curriculum was designed in a way that it matches with the reality of our environment, before somebody leaves the school, he would have already been adapted to the demands of his environment. He will not need to go asking for jobs again. But since our curriculum is something that is being imported, it is borrowed. And you know that we are dealing with leaders that they do a lot of copy work. They just copy and paste. When they hear in France, like you were talking about prairies, the Canadian prairies. We are talking about agriculture in Canada. In Canada, when they are doing it, they don't end only in theory. They are talking about prairies because they have experimented agriculture in the prairies region of Canada. But when the Cameroonian curriculum designers will copy it there. They will bring it here in theory, and you will discover that they will not even care to find out which readers were they using in Canada. They have not tried to see the realities of the prairies region in Canada. They come to Cameroon, they generalize it. If in the far north there is a bilingual grammar school there, it will be taught as a theory. That will be the same thing that will be taught in Forawa. That's the same thing that will be taught in Tinto. And you discover that the problem is not the individual. The problem are not the Cameroonian certificate holders. The problem is we should attack the wrong educational system that we have in place. If we are not able to correct this educational system, okay, if you see that the individual is the problem, okay, let's all drop out of school. Exactly. Since the educational problem has a problem.
Mr. Njiru,
yes,
you say that the problem is the system of education, and that students are taken through education without fully knowing what awaits them.
Yes.
Are you saying that the student is in the University of Boya and would not know that what actually is selling today is technology? If you are doing journalism today, for example, this program is online.
Yes.
Whether you like it or not. I am a journalist as an individual, and I have seen that it is going technology-wise. Personally, my Facebook page is active. I have interns in this in my media prime here who are doing internship. I called all of them into my office. I said, you all have Facebook pages. What are you doing with them? Are you just posting pictures? And I've imposed on them to start using it to sell themselves. Those with whom I speak, if I talk with anybody who is in school today and I say, how much use are you making of the social media? If you are not there, how do you know of the opportunities? For example, Mr. Teke is here. He organized a training seminar where you get all the things. Do you need the curriculum to tell you this? As a citizen living in a global world?
Yes, you need it.
Okay.
You need it. In the school curriculum of today, you have ICT taught as a subject. And I will still challenge you there that this ICT is still taught in theory. Because if you go to most of the schools in Cameroon, they will teach ICT, but they don't have an ICT laboratory where the practicals can be carried out.
Almost every child has a phone.
No, Mr. Lou, you can't say that.
How many children are in university without?
Even where you come from, how many people have computers in your community?
We are talking about
no.
Talking about computers.
Mr. Lou, look, we are saying here that before using that your Facebook page,
you need internet.
You learned it, and you did not learn it as an individual. You passed through somebody who had learned it somewhere, and then passed on the knowledge to you before you were able to exploit it.
Let me get to
so whatever the case,
yes,
in this case, the people who tutored us in the different domains of education,
they failed somewhere.
They failed somewhere.
Okay, Ndifo, Richard, we are marginalizing Ndifo. Let us get to Ndifo. Yes, Ndifo, we will not marginalize you, though you are in the United States of America, where you people naturally marginalize us, but you think that we are marginalizing you out there. When you are a teacher of history, there are others of your colleagues who teach geography, literature, and a host of others. These children, they are prepared to work where, if I may ask you bluntly?
All right, thank you so much, Jonathan. I think that is a beautiful question you just asked, because I was almost coming back to what Apostle Ambe was talking about, listing some subjects that looks like they are not useful in society. You see, like I said earlier, it is not very much about the kind of subject that children are doing, or the kind of setting. If policymakers focus on the use of an effective instructional model, regardless of setting, they can leave open more options for improving teaching of all students in many different types of programs, be it in history, be it in literature, be it in geography, and whatsoever. Now, let me take history in particular, for example. like I said, it is how this history is structured and how it is delivered. If we take a primary school child and you start telling them to be listing the Mungo Park, talk about Mungo Park, talk about some explorers, some European explorers and all of that, it will sound very obscure and looks very useless in society. Now, if you have to focus, if you have to focus, sorry, what did you say, Leonard? I didn't get you.
The Niger River.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Is it to say that Africans were not living there before Mungo Park came?
This is the point I'm trying to make, Leonard. What I'm trying to say here is that in primary school, for example, you want to teach history, and you start teaching the children about things in Europe, when the children do not even know about the history of their own family. They don't even have the history of their own family. So if the curriculum is structured in a way that the children begin by creating the history of their own family, I mean creating the history, the children start finding out who was my grandparents, what happened before I was born in my family, and they start questioning sources. My father said this. Let me verify from my aunt if what my father is telling me is true. You see, they start developing that skill of critical thinking at that age. They are learning history in a way that they are acquiring those soft skills of critical thinking. Now, if they move over to secondary school, in secondary school, instead of the teacher just coming to class and start, because more or less what we see today in a typical history or geography classroom is what I usually call a situation where the teacher comes to class and glorifies himself and in fact proves to the student how much he knows this literature, this history of Europe and all of that. And by the time he's leaving, the student, they're nodding their head and say, oh, this teacher knows. But at the end of the day, the children are leaving the class virtually empty. Now, there is this thing that they call the competency-based education that has been introduced by the Ministry of Secondary Education. Even though the manner in which it is implemented is so horrible that it becomes so difficult for it to be implemented, but a lot of teachers are resisting that. They're resisting it with all their might and force. They don't even just want to hear about it, because they are so used to their traditional form of coming to class and singing the song, and the student knows how well the teacher knows the material, and then they carry their bags and go back home. Now, what if they train these children in a way that you come to class and allow the children to be able to investigate these things by themselves? They work in group to do that. That fact, just the simple fact that they're working in group, they're already building the skill of teamwork in class. When they do that work, they have to communicate it to the rest of the class. They talk about their findings to the rest of the class. They're building the skills of communication. So you see, within history, you can use history and impact those soft skills, those employability skills in the children, if the curriculum is structured and the pedagogical model is structured in a way that allows these children not to be passive listeners in the classroom, but should be active participants and people who are actually trying to investigate and create knowledge. Because basically what happened in the educational system is we feel that the students are some kind of empty bag out there, that we are just coming to fill them up with knowledge. And so they just sit there, and most often, a majority of the time in class, they are just listening to the teacher, talking and talking and talking. And that is why what they do at the end of the day is they cram those things that the teacher have presented in the form of notes, they reproduce it in the exam, and they forget it. Immediately they finish writing the exams, they forget all of those things. So you find a student who has an A grade in advanced level history, but basically has no skills in historical analysis, has no skills in critical thinking, and all of that. there was a time at the marking center I raised this issue, and my chief examiners almost ate me up and said, oh, this is exactly what we are evaluating. We are evaluating the children's skills of critical thinking, their skills of historical analysis. But listen, Leonard, this is what we were actually doing at the examination center, the marking center. What we were doing is that the students are giving some notes. They are giving notes that the teacher has taken and done the analysis by himself and dictate the notes to the student. The student read the analysis of the teacher and reproduce that analysis to the exam, to the GCE, at the level of the GCE. And then we say we are marking the children's skills of analysis. But in actual fact, we are marking the children's cram work. They have just crammed the teacher's analysis and reproduced. So these are the kind of things that we need to look at. And then we begin even with the teachers accepting that this model of delivery of lessons and teaching of children is not the best. Once we try and make teachers to start accepting that that is not the best model in teaching, then we start getting into restructuring our curriculum and making sure that even some of those subjects that we find to be useless, as a matter of fact, there is no discipline that is useless. We need all this discipline in the society. Even I hear people talk about psychology. Psychology is as important as technology that you mentioned. It is about how the students graduate with that skill of psychology.
Yeah, but then, very briefly. Now, the problem is all of these subjects are very important and helpful to our society, but the problem is the quantity of what we churn out as philosophy graduates in a year, history graduates in a year, geography graduates in a year. If we were to be churning out thousands of them, what do they serve our Cameroonian community in? Can we not also structure? Can we not also structure that? Okay, let us have a number that will be required for our community. Don't you think we are producing more than the community needs?
Yeah. Again, Leonard, it looks like what I've been saying, you've not been getting my point.
No, I've been getting.
Again, I'm coming back to the fact that if even the history teachers or the students were being taught in a way that they acquire the necessary skills that are needed, when they go out there in the field, they will not even be required to use only the history knowledge. They will be required to use those different skills that they have acquired in the process of acquiring knowledge. So what happens is that in acquiring the history knowledge, so to speak, because there is it becomes very difficult for us to say that, okay, this quantity or this number of students should only do history, and this number of students should only do technology, or this number of students should do medicine. It is very difficult to structure and limit and put that kind of limit to the number of students who do this. The thing we can do is that when those students opt to go to that discipline, which we can definitely not control, because we cannot control the number that comes there if they want to come there. It is true we can always orientate them at the younger age to get towards certain discipline. But at the end of the day, if you find them at that discipline, even the few who are in the history should not come out and be useless. They should come out and be useful in the community. Okay. They should come back and be employable. They should be in a way that they can be employable. And that can be done by structuring the history syllabus and not leaving history to be a memorization of fact and reproduction of those facts, but rather structure the history curriculum to the extent that a student who is studying history will be leaving the classroom or graduating from the history department with several skills that makes him or her employable.
Okay,
that's the point I'm trying to make.
Your point is made. Yes, you have something to add to what he said. Yeah.
Yes. I think Mr. Anglophone said something very important. Yeah. Where he started by talking about the environment. When you go through the CBA approach now, the competence-based approach, you see what they call the team. Each month has a team, and in that team you need to start from the simple to complex. That is, you start from what the child knows about his environment before sending the child somewhere. You start from the known to the unknown. The child should start with what he already knows so that he develops a skill to the one that he never knew. Now, to add to what he said in history, there are new ways of structuring questions where you can use a history question to come up with what we call a complex situation. And in that complex situation, by the end of that lesson, the child will have a question to answer there in mathematics, will have a question to answer there in economics, will have a question to answer there in biology. But then, the problem now is at the level of the implementation, because some of, I still come back to this, our curriculum designers have brought it, and they are telling us that it shall go into full force only in this particular year, because we ought to have started it in the GCE last year. But last year they told us that, wait, we are still struggling to see how it goes. So I just wanted to add more phrase to one before say that no subject is less important. It depends on the situation that you carve out questions from that subject, because you can use one subject and you cut across maybe 3 different subjects.
Okay. Yes. Eli, I'm sending you a video. I want to have this video played before we get to our second topic for tonight. But then we are asking ourselves why many persons are not getting employed after graduation. Isn't it also because we have a very weak private sector? Because a vibrant private sector would also connote a vibrant economy, which will breed many enterprises and consequently many more jobs.
Of course, any country with a very bad private sector equally hampers employment, which in our case Cameroon is a very good example of a bad private sector, which is as a result of bad government policies that will not allow individuals excel in the private sector. In most countries in the world, the capitalist system of economy is the best. What we have in Cameroon is yet to be defined. It's a system of government that does not give the private sector a breathing space. People are not given the opportunity to excel in their private businesses. Our children have gone to school, come back. Most of them are coming out of the civil service mentality. But when they go to set up businesses, set up plantations, and to set up other things, the kind of government policies put in place do not allow these youngsters to grow. It hampers them. It frustrates every of their energy. We cannot minimize the role of the government in suppressing the talents and initiatives of people. For instance, in Cameroon, we have different talents. People can sing music. It is also a skill and a talent. Some play football, some do this. We are not talking about just working in a market or working in an office. There are other potentials and skills. But you see, the government policies that guide these respective sectors in the country, they are not encouraging at all. For instance, in a place like America, somebody can sing a song and become a millionaire.
A dancer?
Yes, can become a billionaire. Yeah. These common sectors that are very much protected, they are neglected in our society. In America, you cannot pirate somebody's CD. If he removes a song, he eats the money himself alone on that particular CD. But in Cameroon, here, before the CD is coming out, someone has already pirated it, thereby hampering the effort and the skill and talent of young musicians who are coming up. Because I talk about employment, employment is not just going to sit in a classroom or sit in an office or sit in a particular board of directors and then you say you are employed. No, any potential in you that can generate income is an employment. We have young people today who are in the society, they have different talents in them. In Cameroon, we have good footballers that will not play football because they don't have connections with people who are leading the football sector of the country, because somebody does not have a godfather somewhere. Someone said if you want to excel in Cameroon, the first thing you have to do is not to be competent but to have a godfather, which means incompetent people with godfathers can go far, while competent persons without godfather will not go anywhere. We have wrong people in the right places and right people in the wrong places. Somebody said the illiteracy of the 21st century is not him that has not gone to school, but the one that has refused to learn, unlearn and relearn. There are some things we learned in the past, we have to unlearn them. And there are some things we learn, we have to relearn them. That is what we talk about the illiteracy of the 21st century. If at all we have a society whereby people's potentials are not given the opportunity to be expressed. You go to a place like America, somebody's responsibility is a marriage counselor. He sits there and is getting good money out of it. But if you want to be a marriage counselor in Cameroon, what are you going to get? Where everybody believes that everything is done there for free. Somebody come from Europe and say, I want counseling for my marriage, but I know I have to pay you. That is the orientation. They have to pay for services. A lot of services in Cameroon are considered for free, while in other countries they are paid for. Now that has to do with government policies put in place. There is nobody who can come and be certified marriage counselor and you open an office, you're going to get money. You won't get money. But there are persons in Europe who live on that complete throughout their lives. In
Europe, you are a sociologist, you make good money. You're an anthropologist,
you make good money.
Yeah,
it's not that. That's what I'm telling you, that the system, the structure put in place does not give expression to certain talents and potential to easily make money. Somebody is a dancer. I was watching a French channel and a girl came there, 31 years old. My name is Lizzie. My profession, I'm a dancer. And she's making good money out of being a dancer. Can you dance in Cameroon and make money? You cannot. So how do you explain that our societal structures are very different from what is over there? I think we have to do some things in such a way that every service rendered should be paid for.
Okay.
And that has to do with government policies.
Good evening, Prime. Our crew, most students are trained in such a way that the aspect of critical thinking is absent in them. They are made to be rigid and less flexible in their thinking ability. Cameroonian students are made to believe that without public service, they can't have job security. They are fashioned to depend on concourse upon graduation. The recent introduction of entrepreneurship into secondary school program is a great idea. This will change students' mindset to see creativity and self-employment as a tool for personal and community development. Agbotambe Ferino is writing from Douala. This one says, please, I wish you broadcast this. Okay, we're going to do that. Mohammed writing from Casablanca says, good evening, Mr. Kumlenat, and to you all in the studio. Just want to appreciate you for the wonderful program. Extend my greetings to Mr. Njewum and Apostle Ambe. Mohammed, okay. You would know him. He was in the program here last time. Hello, Mr. Liu. Your program is very inspiring. Please, for Apostle Ambe's contact, can you just request for this number after the program? Good evening to you all. I think they are jobless because most of them want white-collar jobs. Okay. Mr. Liu, I saw a 12-year-old cybersecurity technician who, according to Cameroonian education, does not even have ordinary levels, but you find students studying computer science in upper seats who cannot write a simple program. Mr. Liu, good evening. I will not lie to you. When you cannot employ, don't train, because if you are training thieves every year, they train millions, but none with which of a country is that? Please, Liu, the government should stop unless its citizens, okay, unless you, okay, uselessing, but you did not write it right. Uselessing its citizens. Good evening. Theodore is writing. Good evening to you, Theodore. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the panelists. The educational system in Cameroon needs to be completely revised. How can one explain the fact that a few art students, after obtaining advanced certificates and after 2 or few years, you find him or her inviting you to attend a graduation ceremony in a school of medicine? Kmer is writing from Yaoundé. Good evening, everybody in this house. Victor from Spain. School in Cameroon, first of all, is not serious. Someone will go to UB. After 3 years, she goes to learn their hairdressing. Many graduates after school, no job. Cameroon don't offer jobs for graduates, so let us be real in life. We go to school to acquire knowledge, meanwhile life based on our personal efforts of what we are capable of to do without any certificates. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My question to the house: in the educational system in Cameroon, we have 2 systems and claim to say Cameroon is indivisible. Why can the government not make one educational system, thereby making the students concentrate on one system? Epa Gislem is writing from Mutengene. One of the problems we have today is because of that same effort. There was such intention to wanting to harmonize most of the things that were happening in Cameroon, and Anglophones felt that that harmonization was going to swallow them up. So you are proposing something to which you are going to complain tomorrow. Yes, it's true. Good evening, Mr. Liu and all the panelists. A good topic today. Besides all the points you guys are elaborating on, there is a problem of earning government job and becoming a civilian property. The notion of turning all government payroll workers into militants of the party is a great problem to our youth. Today, all the jobs and concours entrances have their prices. Well-to-do families are ready to buy these positions for the family members to also lazy about bird by eating state's money. Okay, Mr. Leonga is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Leo. To you all, I would like to begin here by saying that obtaining employment after university in Cameroon is often difficult, and the reasons for this are vast. Although some individuals fail to do their part, other times the situation is out of their control. Some graduates accept the first job they find without realizing the potential impact it may have on their future. In Cameroon, as I know, as well as some experts, from local economic issues to undervalued measures, there are many reasons why graduates struggle in their job search. Personal reasons aside, there are greater causes that face many students and recent graduates, such as high competition, little work experience, few or no skills, little networking, lack of follow-up, or lack of communication skills. So yeah, message is too long, I can't read it. Oops. Hello to the crew. As regards yes, our educational system needs to be redesigned, but calling some degree courses or certificates useless is not really good. I personally think all degrees and certificates have use. It now depends if we as degree holders are willing to apply what we studied on the field and get paid for it. Government must not employ everyone. It does not happen anywhere in the world. Even in America, we should gain skills, attend trainings and seminars on how to apply what we studied in the university on the field. We should be innovative. It can be. Joachim is writing from Boya. Yes, the messages are just so many. Eli, if the video is ready, can we have a listen to it?
They realized that if we take away Africans from practice and move them to theory, we will be creating a labor force for ourselves. So they brought a school system which did not promote thinking, but promoted remembering.
Say that again.
They brought a school system which did not promote thinking, but promoted remembering, for the sake of creating good employees who don't think but can remember. Okay?
Right.
So they brought a school system where you learnt useless things. Homo habilis. Who was Shaka's mother? What is the longest river in Africa?
Yeah.
Tell me, what is the use of that rubbish? Okay? So you went into school and you were studying how many times Muslims pray per day.
Yep.
You wake up at night to study how many times Muslims pray per day. So you memorize photosynthesis. You memorize how many teeth a dog has. You memorize everything. And at the end of the day, what did they produce? They produced someone who was a container of useless knowledge. A container of useless knowledge.
Right.
That is why today we have doctors who have been independent for 55 years. Have you heard that there are vaccines being made by Zambian doctors? So you walk out of medical school as someone who knows when to give Panadol, how to take temperature. You are a doctor who is a Panadol distributor. And it's not your fault, the education system. Okay? You have professors in this country, in the School of Forestry at Copperbelt University.
Yep.
We have lived with Mukula tree since God created the world. All they know is how to label the parts of the tree. They don't know the value of the tree.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So when this mission succeeded, then they came to set up industries. And when they set up industries, who was the laborer? The graduate from the School of Remembering. Okay. Someone who would remember how to dig, where to dig. Someone who would remember how to cut a tree and how many pieces. Someone would remember. And they rewarded you with a bribe called a salary, and we became comfortable.
Right.
So when they come into Africa, what are they coming to do? They are coming to reap your resources, and you are a means of production. So this is what made Africa poor.
The second topic for tonight is what needs to be fixed in our system of education. I'll just go through everybody. I'll start with Apostle Ambe. One time, why you know what system we operate in Cameroon. You are a product of this system. I am a product of the system. I'm proud of the system. Yes, but what needs to be fixed in the system?
The first thing we need to fix in the system is that people should not be qualified or considered qualified by handing papers to them. Certificate. They should be considered qualified by producing what they learned. If somebody says he's an agronomist, he should be able to produce us a farm. That farm it should be the yardstick for his qualification, not a paper. Because, like Mr. Ndifo said, most of the things we have in Africa is just theories combined together. Like the man said, the school of remembering. You go, you study to remember, and then you come. I was talking with one of the interns here today, and she said she passed French in the A levels and doesn't know French. Then I asked her, she said she had to just gather the necessary information to deliver at that moment. And then when she asked now to deliver what she passed. So people have certification for what they don't know. People have certificates for what they are not qualified for. So if you want to qualify somebody in Cameroon, it is his curriculum vitae, and once you look through his certificate, you will know that the certificate says that he is qualified in this thing, or with the person in question is not even qualified in what you are trying to qualify him. So we are employing unqualified people with qualified papers. Yes, so we should stop the idea of people, because I think in countries like China, what they bring to school as homework or assignment is based on what they have taught you. A child can come back with a toy, a mobile phone, as a sign that they have studied IT. But we go back to school in the evening with papers the next day, and you are standing there, the person, they are marking it. How do you explain they are teaching IT in Cameroon? They are teaching about traditional IT equipment. Gong. How does that teach you cyber security? Drums. Gong, 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 gong. What is that IT? So let us get to work. A child who has studied IT supposed to bring a computer, be able to dismantle that computer and mount it, not telling that traditional IT tools. Number one, gong. Kung, 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 kung. Another one, drums, bring, bring, boom, boom, boom. You take a child backward to go. Is that tradition or IT? When a man comes from India, that is an IT tech. You can see the manifestation. Not the case here. Our IT techs will tell you traditional IT instruments. Number one, gong. Kung, 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 kung. Number three, radio. Radio doesn't even know the parts. So the theory system of education is what has affected us. Let us go practical. Let us go practical.
Mr. Ghana, Maina, you know what obtains in Cameroon. What needs to be fixed in our system of education?
Thank you, Mr. Leo. First of all, we want to know what is our needs and our wants.
Okay.
The important needs today to make sure that we redesign this education system. When we go back to that, our brother from America who's giving us the strategy to teach our kids history and geography, you are not helping Africans, my brother. Africans don't need history and geography. We have more important, yes, we have more. Me, Mr. Ghana, I went to school, they asked me the story of Omyobe, all those things. It made me only dumb. I never learned anything in my life. I have to be very honest on the platform. I need to understand at least a technical skill that I can bring something to develop my country, to make sure that the technical skill I acquired, I can develop it to make sure that I create some jobs, or I bring something on the table that my government can regularize and make sure it works for me. You ask me to go the geography, the longest river, the Vuri, all those things. What is going to help Cameroon? It cannot help me, it cannot help my family, it cannot even help this government. The very important things that we need to understand right now, we lack the skillful youth in the country that they can't produce anything. Anything, you know, they cannot produce. We have almost 5 million of them today jobless. That's why they say they are jobless, because you don't have nothing to offer. If you see someone is a jobless person, means he don't have nothing to offer to the government. Imagine after graduating, you become another liability to the government and a liability to your family. And families are suffering out there in Africa that after paying school fees for their children, they have again to go and sell their land, to go and give them money to go and look the job from the government they pay. After even getting this job, they need again to go and sell their land to give them, to make sure that they can send them in a region that they can work peacefully. Which kind of life are we living? So finally, we are living in sorrow. Imagine today, can you imagine, Mr. Leo? You are a teacher, they tell you this guy is a lecturer in finance, but he is one of the broke person in the country. How can you teach me finance? You cannot manage 30 days of your salary. So how can you be a failure, Mr. Leo, but you teach me how to be successful? Today, if you tell me, Mr. Ghana, your lecturer is Mr. Paul Fokam, and will be there by 5 a.m. because he's a successful person in banking. If you tell me Mamadou Babadan Pulo will be a lecturer in economic or in commerce, I will be there by 5 a.m. because we have proof. But you can't tell me somebody who don't have nothing. He cannot manage his salary for 30 days, and he teaching me to be successful. How? When those days when they tell you, you go to the army, they tell you this is your trainer. If he's talking to you about the army, you know that he's a professional, what he's saying, and he prove you from A to Z. But now our teachers, they are just telling a story. Our man say here, the School of Remembrance. If you're asking me today about what is the name of the governor of my region, is that going to help me? Is that going to bring food on the table? This is the difficulties we have. We want to make sure that 75% of our education as of today is really needed by skillful youth. We need to bring a system to teach them something that they can do. When they come out to school, at least they can start doing something. How many of younger generation you know in Cameroon today, after graduating, he tell you that I don't need to look a job. With my experience, I can start doing something. How many of them? Maybe in 1 million, you cannot get 10. So mean that the education is not working. We have enough. These 5 million youth now in Cameroon, they are, who are not jobless. For the next 20 years, the government cannot employ them in the civil service. We all know that. So if we are adding again, teaching them the story and the geography, mean that we are adding a lot of jobless in the country. Inside of teaching the technical skill that after graduation, they can do something, they can work, they can bring something to the society. I am a witness. After leaving the country, there is nothing I know. Just so I tell you that now I'm graduating from this school. You don't have nothing to offer in your head. Imagine someone after graduating from university, Leo, if they ask you one skill you can show you don't have. Sometimes when you go to another country, you can go and work just as a house help, washing the dishes in a restaurant, because your diploma is bogus. We all know that. And we have millions of that now in our African system. My brother, no, when he went to America, with all the diploma he get from the country, he went there. Maybe he's a security guard. He don't tell us the truth. Because security guard in America, they don't need any certificate. They take you, they should train you and give you the uniform, and you stay in front of the building. How many of Africans we know in Europe or in America, Mr. Leo, after graduating from the university, when they go home, you see them, they are working like home care, security guard. They are washing dishes, working in the restaurant, cleaning the street, because our diploma are very bogus. We have nothing to offer. My suggestion today, we need to make sure we bring a system now that can train the younger generation in technical skill, because they can contribute to the development of the country. Thank you, Mr. Leo.
Okay. Mr. Ghana is raising an issue here. He's looking at the training we get in Cameroon.
Jonathan, can I just ask things to you?
Go ahead.
Okay, come in. But Ndifo, can you fix your set, please? Can you bring it down a bit? And let me see Ndifo a bit. Yes, yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, go on.
All right, Leonard. Mr. Ghana said a lot of things there, a lot of beautiful things there, and which I do not disagree with him. And in fact, all of us, we are saying the same thing. It just seemed like he is misunderstanding me, and I understand quite where the angle from which he is coming. You see, he's coming from the perspective from which he was trained. You see, like, and which is the same kind of system that operates right now, where history is a combination of facts that is dished out to students. They cram the facts and reproduce, like I said earlier. And that is absolutely not what I was saying. In fact, I need to know the country in this world where we have just technicians and no one else. We just have technicians with, and even the technicians, you will never be complete with just technical skills. There is no way in this world you can be complete with just technical skills. Those technical skills need to be complemented with some knowledge, some theoretical knowledge. You cannot just say that anything theory should be completely wiped out and then we just bring in technical skills and just replace every theory. That is in a world that I don't know where that can be found. I've never seen that, and I don't know the kind of world where Mr. Ghana wants to. You see, some of these things we talk about, we should try as much as possible to be real. We are talking here about practicality. Let us try to be real. Let us not be abstract. Let us not be saying things that cannot even work. Because if we don't have geographers in societies, we don't have historians in society, and we just have technicians all over the place. I wonder what kind of society that is.
One question, Mr. Leo. Let me repeat one time. We need to know the difference between the needs and the want. Now, actually, now our problem, we are in need of those technical skills. I'm saying the needs. You are talking the wants. We need them now. Because if you don't know where you are,
my point. Let me just take my point to the end. You come in. Let me take my point to the end. Now, what I'm saying is that technical skills are needed. Have you ever wondered why the mechanics with those technical skills we have who leave maybe primary school, or some of them didn't even complete primary school, why they can never advance really to a certain advanced stage of their mechanical work, yet they have the skills? Have we ever asked ourselves those questions? That is because they just acquired those technical skills without the knowledge that have to complement that. They need the knowledge. They need knowledge to complement it. Then let me just finish. They need the knowledge to complement that. Take, for example, if you want to teach a child how to drive a vehicle, that child needs to know the different parts of the vehicle.
I'm not sure that is what Mr. Ghana said.
Before coming to know, getting the vehicle and driving.
No, but when Mr. Ghana, Mr. Ndifo, when Mr. Ghana talks about technical education goes with theory. There's no way you are going to be endowed with technical. Yes, it still goes with what you are saying. And I'm not sure. Please, Mr. Ndifo, no, you cannot learn. You cannot learn, Mr. Ndifo. We have 15 more minutes. There are people in the studio who have to talk. Mr. Ndifo, please.
Is it possible for us to have a society
Mr. Ndifo
without? Yeah, go ahead, Yona.
Mr. Ndifo, this is not your time now. There are people here who have not spoken. You were complaining of marginalization. You are now marginalizing those in the studio here.
No, this. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Yona.
Okay, Judge, Mr. Mufo, we are looking at what's happening out there. What needs to be fixed? Where is the problem?
I think again, it's about priority here.
Okay.
When you look at what we are talking about, we shouldn't sound utopic that we can solve these problems with the whim of the hand. And there is a young lady in Boya, currently whom I'm coaching, dropped her PhD program in geology and a government job in Yaoundé, and she is a fashion designer.
Okay.
And she's making so much money out of that, but she could not design In fact, she has been hearing about strategic plan or business model and business plan because she was now trained only to taste the soil and find out whether it has minerals and all of those things. So she was limited at that point. But I want conversation with her and showed her a business model canvas. Her mindset changed, and she's now thinking what my friend in Boya called a billionaire mindset. And I love what one person also said there. You go to a school like one of the schools I went to, where the translation school. You see people who actually tell you that a translator can make a million from a single translation job because they count the number of pages and the number of letters and all of that. But you see the person who is talking to you does not resemble somebody who has been earning that type of money for the past 25 years that he has been a translator. But he's telling you should learn this thing because you can make so much money. Now, besides that, you have not come to understand one thing where I'm coming from, Boya, and they call it the Silicon Mountain. That's the most resilient town, because if you look at what the guys have been able to do, they have gone beyond what we call certificate, and it has even motivated me. I'm doing a research now on the role of business incubators in the creation of employment for young people in Boya. To actually see, the first incubator in Boya was created in 2010, and if you imagine, the government only came out with a policy on incubation in 2020. But these guys, they have been able to be highlighted by BBC, those multinational channels outside there, highlighting what those guys are doing. These guys, most of them, actually, if you ask them what they actually studied in school per se, they will not be able to pinpoint, but it's out of their curiosity. And you will see how from resilience, they even had to cut internet from them, sometimes in the course of the current situation that we are living, and these guys still persisted and they stayed there, and today they are becoming a reference. Every ambassador who comes to Cameroon wants to go and discover those guys, what they are doing, and they are trying to even try to hook them with some niceties to structure them. The guys are operating their own model. What am I driving at? There is a simple investment that every school, higher institution, whether secondary school, can do. I hear today there is a mantra, environmental, what I call it, entrepreneurship education. Entrepreneurship education does not make you an entrepreneur. What makes you an entrepreneur is a mindset. And that mindset can only be set out of the normal comfort zone that you are living within. And how do you do this? Set up incubators in school. This is not something that is going to even entail an extra investment. Just make allocation for a particular classroom and allow this place to be, like they call, a creative center where the learners go there and allow them. I hear us talk about designers, people drawing in geography and the rest. Artists are one of the those are people who are the highest paid, because they also provide artistic work for the minds where people invest in, and we can quote it Picasso and the rest of the world. These are people who are talented based on some of those things. Today, an average parent is encouraging the child to go and play football, thanks to people like models like the Eto and the rest. I'm not sure Eto even went beyond Form 2 in any secondary school. So we should have that environment where the rules are broken by children who want to come out from the home, from the school system, and given the opportunity to rediscover themselves by creating that corner. The only thing that we should do is that particular corner that a child goes there, allow the child to come out with a discovery, and then you assign a coach to that particular child, and then they start following up. There is no way you can be talking about opening a business and then you cannot be able to identify how you can analyze the cost and how you can generate money from that business. These are all things that hardly will have time in a typical economic class to be able to learn all of this. They will still tell you demand and supply, those structural things that you only cram to say when demand is high, and loss and all of those things that you cram them and they will reproduce, and you become a regurgitating animal like the goats and the cows. We are now talking about breaking from the status quo, rediscovering. I hear one of us say, learn and unlearn and all those things. It can only happen when the environment, because we still keep on holding ourselves within the traps of institution, you will hardly come to discover the talent that we can have. And so until the schools start seeing the children, first of all, as independent minds that can discover things, and they are tolerant to be able to listen to those things, even at home. Look at the type of they tell you at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. people should go to bed and all of those things, when a child is probably hiding with his machine and trying to discover those things. That's how you find people coming to know. Go to many parents today, they will tell you that they don't know how to manipulate their mobile phones, but their child who is 8, 9, 10 years who are doing all of those things. And Leo, before I end, when you look at the structure,
my son knows how to manipulate the remote control in my house more than me.
Beautiful.
I don't know how they.
You shut that child. Bring that mobile phone. That thing here. I don't want you to ever touch this thing. That's the typical African home that we have. You shout at a child that never touches thing. Leo, let us also, because we keep on blaming the rate of what we're having. Look at the ages at which these guys are giving certificates. Today, look at the profile of an average A-level owner, 15-year-old, 14 years old. And we're happy. But at that age, it takes an extra genius for you to be able to be productive. You are only going to be the cram work that you know because you have been able to manipulate yourself to some handout that they have given from the classroom. It takes an extra movement for you to be able to have some wounds, to go to the field, and then you are beaten by a friend and all of those things for you to become a Mike Tyson. Let us look at the history of some of these guys, how they make money before some of them were the biggest rascals. But today we want to condition ourselves. We say, no, align, don't make friends with this particular person, stay on this plane because that's a group of persons and all those things. Let us also take our own responsibility and know that this is a collective action. The school, the society, the churches, everyone should be able to identify those talents and allow those talents to flourish.
Okay. Now, Mr. Ndiwum, you are a teacher. If you were to advise, what needs to be fixed in our system of education?
Yes, a series of things need to be fixed in our educational system. First, which is content.
Okay.
Because it is from the content that the teachable units are derived. And if we have a wrong content, we must produce wrong teachable units. And again, we need to make our education go above the theory level and then becomes more pragmatic. If we could have a system where recruitment into various job sites are done through practicals. I'm not talking about the practicals
based on competence?
Based on competence, hands-on deck approach. I'm not talking about the kind of practical that somebody is related to you before you come there. They say that, no, yesterday you operated a machine. No, I mean practical examination under observation, public observation, to avoid bias. And if we could also encourage our vocational education with a lot of practical material, they will do us it will do us good. But all these things, remember, can only be obtained if the political will for those who are manning the country is there. Because I can vividly recall a report that was made in 2019 where the Minister of Higher Education openly told a lie to Cameroonians that the Ngaoundere University was already well equipped to go professional. Whereas when the cameras were taken up now, the rector ran away because the university itself was in complete bush. There was nothing there until today. We are saying it with certitude. There is nothing that has been put in that university that can take the children practical. So what I'm saying in a nutshell is that our education has to live from theory and then go pragmatic. That is what we need at this point in time.
Yeah, Mr. Apostle Ambe Ntangwa, if you were to talk to the ministers of vocational training, basic education, secondary education, higher education, what would you tell them?
The first thing I have to address, like Mr. Ndifo said, we cannot emphasize on the fact that we should teach only technical things in our country. The truth is, most of the things given to us, even in the historical dimension or geographical sectors, are strange things. We are not aware with the reality of our own environment. If we are teaching geography in Cameroon, we should teach geography so that a Cameroon will understand from studying geography where the climate is good for so and so product, so that by the time you're coming out of school, if you want to be an agriculturalist, you will know specifically the kind of crop and where to go and plant it. You don't come to geography and you teach us about, like we said the last time, the pampas of Argentina. There are no pampas in Cameroon. You teach us the prairies of Canada. There are no prairies in Cameroon. Teach us what can grow in the southwest region. Teach us what can grow in the northwest region. That is the kind of geography we need. We don't need adulterated geography. We don't need strange geography where the realities of that geography is not in our environment. If you want to teach us history, teach us where the people from Kmer came from. What are the things that happened in Kmer? What were the errors they committed in those days? What were the discrepancy between certain tribal groups that led to where we are today? They should be teaching others that we don't plunge into Anglophone crisis by studying the history of Cameroon. Not a history that we are not even aware of. And then when sometimes something happened in our country, we are asking historians to still rewrite. If at all we had a history, a corroborated history of our own country, I'm sure every Cameroon would have known if we are one and indivisible or we are two different persons. But we stand in a position whereby a group of scholars say we are divided, other groups say we are one and indivisible in the same historical content. And then now we are being told that a group of historians have to still write down the history of a 60-year-old nation. What history did they teach us until we have doctors in history, professors in history, degree holders like Mr. Ndifode? If you are in America as a historian and a history teacher, and you are there, it's now that they are still writing the history of Cameroon, then you should go and burn the one that you studied in the past. Something is wrong somewhere. You may come back to Cameroon one day and want to talk the history you studied, and they will tell you that in 2021 the history of Cameroon was rewritten. So what you studied from 1960 to the year you left Cameroon is not the history of Cameroon. It means the certificates obtained before this new history are all obsolete. These are the things we are talking about. So I think if at all we have to talk to the ministers, let them make us be conscious of the realities of our own environment. Europeans study their environment. They know what grows in their environment. And the truth is, we have to understand that we have not attained a certain level of technology. So we should not enforce a lot of technological activities. Now what we need is agrarian understanding. In this content of Cameroon, every country that has broken forth into the Industrial Revolution started with an agrarian sector. We have not even exploited the agrarian concept in our country. We are thinking of a technological system. It is impossible. It is what we produce as products or produce that influences us to start creating machines to process them. What have we produced so far that we want to process? And I think we should lay emphasis on what we can do for now. It is what will give birth, because technology grows and it evolves. We are trying to rush. I saw a young man in Bamenda mounted an aircraft, and the father helped him with 100,000 to buy some things, and he was able to use a remote control to carry the aircraft into the air, and he flew the aircraft for a particular distance and he came back. That young man is not an advanced level holder. There was a young man that became the best Google engineer, I think, in 2019 from Northwest Province. He was an advanced level holder. He didn't need to have a degree in IT or master's degree in IT. Let us learn to develop the potentials of individuals, downloading notes in their minds. Children have carried information that has even helped to cover the realities inside of them. How do you explain that somebody who may be someone that can produce an electron is choosing, or he chooses to study something like biochemistry in the university? His idea of creating an aircraft has been swallowed by that biochemistry. Because why? The subject he needs to study, which is aviation, is not even in the curriculum. Do you know that many Cameroonians have studied what they know it's not part of them, because what they want to study is not available? I know of a young girl who was supposed to study the University of Buea here and realized that what she wanted to read is not in the entire University of Buea. It will shock you. And then they had to carry a child to Nigeria to go and study there. How do you explain that we have universities in the country that do not even have courses for some of our children? So some people have substituted their skill, their potential, their ability in subject that they are skillful at to study what is available. So people study what is available, they don't study what they need. That is the problem. So let us...
They don't study what the society needs.
No, they don't even study their potential. They study what's available.
What do you want to?
For instance, if at all you wanted to read journalism and mass communication and there was no course here, you must do something else. You obtain that degree because you wanted to obtain a degree, because you want to do what you are gifted at. I think we should start bringing out the potential and the ability. Like I said earlier, our ministers also should give opportunity. It is not just employment through certificate. People have giftings and potentials. There are volleyballers, there are footballers, there are singers, there are basketballers, there are dancers. We should create an avenue where such things can easily thrive. Europe is creating different kinds of sports every day. Even cripples in Europe who didn't go to school have something to offer. Men who have no leg have the race for the lame and the cripples. So we talk about job, office. No. What you are gifted and empowered to do in life is your job. Everybody can get a job, but not everybody can work. Job is what you are offered. Work is what you carry in you. So let us go to develop the potential, the skill, the ability of the people. You don't need an office if you have a work. Okay, that's a good society.
Yes, Mr. Ndifo, your last intervention. What needs to, you are a teacher, what needs to be fixed here? Because earlier on you were itching. Can you bring down your appliance, please? Bring it down a bit, please. Okay, yeah. Yes.
Let me come back to what I said before, to say that
no,
it is perfectly right. We need technical education in our society. What we need right now is not maybe scraping one type of education or the other. It is about, like many of the other panelists have been saying, it is about restructuring our curriculum, redesigning our curriculum, be it in the regular academic schools, be it in the vocational schools, be it in the technical schools, because someone said something there that is very pertinent, talked about the fact that you could introduce technical education, yes, and you make the technical education curriculum still become very theoretical, where students still graduate from technical education and are not useful in the society. So by just saying that, oh, let's introduce technical education, we are not solving the problem. We are not solving the problem. So we will solve the problem if we redesign our curriculum, be it in whatever discipline, whether it's regular or whatever, and make sure that the curriculum focuses more on skills acquisition. And if we do that, we will also need to streamline the content, because what is wrong with us is that there is so much content that we don't even have the time to introduce the skills. If you take something like history, if you go to the advanced level syllabus of history or maybe geography, it is bogus. It is so much. Each time we throw it back to the same teachers. I always come back to teachers because sometimes teachers too are the problem. They are a real problem to the whole of this thing, because there was a time they gave teachers the opportunity to restructure the syllabus and make sure that they streamline it. And you see teachers, because maybe they have written their polycops and they have certain topics in it, and they are afraid that they don't want those topics to go, they turn around with it and still bring back all those things that are not necessary, those things that apostolic meaning and all of that in the syllabus which are not necessary. What we need is for those syllabus to be, the theoretical aspect of it, the content should be completely streamlined, so that we have very little content, and then we emphasize more on skills building, so that children, rather than just learning, it is true, they should learn about the environment from which they come from in history, but while learning about environment from which they come from, they should be able to acquire skills that they can use in real life situation, that they can use in new situation. They may not necessarily use it only in a historical environment, but they can use those skills in real life to solve real life problems. For example, if a child should learn the ability to question sources, that child will be able to fight fake news as we have it today. He will not just accept things the way they come. He will be able to fight fake news. But fake news has no relationship with history. But in the history lesson, they have taught that child to question sources. And that child is taught in a way that the child acquires skills. The child is not just sitting in the class and the teacher comes there to teach the child about this or that. The child is, the teacher gives the child tools, and the child uses those tools to be able to conduct inquiry, to be able to develop those inquiry and put them down in writing. In that case, you see the child is able to acquire certain skills. And then, like I said earlier, the child doesn't do that alone. The child is given a project, and then it's put together with other classmates and say, okay, you work in this team. And in that case, they build that teamwork. They build the skills of problem solving. They build the skills of leadership, even in that history class. That is the point I've been trying to explain, Donald. Okay. That we structure our curriculum in the way that even in whatever subject we choose. Okay, before we're out of time, thank you. We need it. Mr. Ghana, Mr. Ghana, one word, please. One last word.
Thank you, Mr. Leo. Thank you for giving me this opportunity again. As I said it earlier, I don't know my brother, Mr. Ndifo from America. It took me 20 years to delete the bogus stories that I learned about Christophe Colomb, Magellan, all those things in Cameroon. And I will never wish any of my family member to learn about them because they will never bring food on their table. Meanwhile, I want to remind him again that we need to make sure that we teach our younger generation minimum take 75% of technical skill with practice. We are not talking about theories, because there is a need of technical skill in our country, our society in Africa now. There is no need for story, but geography, story is not needed. You know, there is a need and the wants. My brother have to understand, because he jumped in the other side of America, he forget the difference between the need and the wants. We are talking about the needs now. It's an urgent and is very, very important for us. So we want our younger generation to try as much as possible to learn skills that they can bring something, they can create something, they can at least develop and to transform what we have on the ground to make sure we have a better Africa, not even Cameroon. Mr. Leo, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Seemingly, we are not going to have our last word here. Just one minute. One minute, Mr. Yes.
Yes, Leo, I just want to tell Cameroonians, especially those of them who are in this country now, that January, February is coming, and that's those 2 months can change people's life. Let them recycle their certificates and go into the world of tourism and acquire the various skills that can give them job in the world of tourism. That is the only way we can have people start making valorization. Let them forget about the certificate that is letting them down and look at what Cameroon has as Africa in miniature. And when they are welcoming Africa during the AFCON, they should be able to be relevant to themselves. They have a lot of training opportunities outside there for them to recycle their minds so that they can be able to lose role either as employees or self-employed. Okay, good evening, Mr. Liu, and to you all in the studio. Please, for Apostle Ambe's number, I'm Tayon, writing from Boya. Write a request for that after the program. Mr. Liu, let the audience know that even in the US, the GOP headed by Trump are against the writing of critical history. Okay, Mr. Liu, I like your program. God bless you. It's Umaru writing from Banga Bakundu. God bless you too, Umaru. Greetings to you, Mr. Liu, and panelists. I enjoy your program today. Very interesting topic. Keep it up. God bless you. I'm Tinka from Bamenda. Please, would like to talk with Apostle Ambe. Make that request on WhatsApp. I'll send you his number. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu, and all the panelists. I have seen a situation where a teacher teaching electrical engineering cannot even trace an electrical fault. I'm Kanjo, writing from from Boya. Good evening, sir. I think we should start from our home by common sense, because children today think faster than us. I'm Bori Kingsley, writing from Bamenda. Hello, Mr. Liu, and your panelists. For our country to meet up with today's competitive world, we need to go back to the creating
a solid educational foundation for the basics. That study the child and what they are best in kindergartens and train them from there. Mukete Raphael is writing from Boya. B. Lawrence Ngong, good evening, Mr. Liu and the crew on board your program. I thank Apostle Ambe for his consistent educative points during the debate. To my own view, Cameroon needs professional career guidance counselors in our learning institutions now. The Lawrence Ngong Trade Union is writing from Bamenda. One word, please. One last word.
Yes, let me take this opportunity to announce to Government High School Bojongo External Association our meeting that will be on Saturday, this Saturday, the 28th at SS Club Limbe. Please make sure you come for that meeting. It's very important.
Yes, one last word, please.
Yes, to those who matter in our educational system and sector, since we like to copy, I think we should go copy examples like those of Finland and Germany, where the child's potential, when it is discovered, it is harnessed and promoted, not the big certificates that ends up putting us.
Mr. Liu, remind your listeners that post-war Japan gained economic miracle because of technical education. Bit writing from Bamenda. Good evening again. Okay, no. So many messages. We are already 10 minutes after the time that was allocated to us. We want to thank you, Christian Yestebon, who is helping out here in the studio, and to you, Eli, who is producing the program, and to Noel Bertrand at the broadcasting. We clearly want to say thank you to you, Tambe Bryant, who is supervising the work we do out here. Thank you to our wonderful guest, and not forgetting you, Rosemary Appa, who is giving us moral support. Thank you. We say stay blessed. Bye-bye.